production of An Alternate Mode of Doing Business, presented by Professor John Kalaras, founder of Aristod University and advisor to presidents. If he can advise presidents, he can surely advise us today. Take it away, John.
Christopher, thank you. Short but very intensive and nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. As you can see on the opening screen, I'll have with me two co-presenters. They'll work as panelists, and that is Richard Heller, who is on his way to our room, and definitely Ms. Ragnar Sanikas, who is there already. Thank you, Ragnar. Obviously, the goal for the day is to share with you some of the techniques that we've utilized and have been proven successful. And that will help you improve your productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, and definitely your profits. Obviously, we're speaking to people from the Central Asia and Silk Road Conference, along with from all over the world, like Africa, Europe, a few other Asian countries. The only country I don't have participants today from is Oceania, Australia. We'll do that the next time. Now, with every presentation, as you can see in the bottom of this screen, we'll be covering the what, why, how, who, when, and where, and that is our methodology. The information that I'm citing for you today comes from my books. And as you can see in the lower left part of the book, the magnetic charisma, I have Ragnar's name there because she was impressed with the book and she took it to her own country, Estonia, and it was translated, as you can see, in the mauve, dark bluish color, charisma in Estonian. And of course, Richard Heller was the co-author to my other book that I'll be using today intensely. So both of these co-presenters today are my associates, have been with us for a long, long time, and soon enough, I'll give you their credentials and why they're here today. However, before I even do that, I'd like to remind you what Socrates said, and if Socrates said something, usually it is a wise statement, and he said, I cannot teach you anything. I can only make you think, ask questions, and give you options. And basically, we'll try to do the same thing with you today as well. Now, if your expectations are a crystal ball where you can solve all of your problems, that's not going to happen, let me tell you, okay? However, if you're expecting workable techniques that have been tested and proven successful by all of us, all three presenters today for a number of years, you are in the right place. Now that we had the first introduction, let me begin with Ragnar's introduction too, because my co-presenters will be coming in as soon as a segment is finished. What I mean by that, folks, is the following. We have a lengthy presentation today, so we broke it down into smaller segments, and at the end of every segment, my co-presenters will be coming in to explain, discuss, add, modify, whatever they want to say on the subject. So the first co-presenter that will come in is Ragnar. You can see her on the screen. And basically, if I want to go through her credentials, it would take us almost both hours that we have available today. So I hope, Ragnar, you don't mind. I will only give a synopsis of your credentials. Folks, Ragnar is the founder of the World Women's Empowerment Association, international organization that has presence in 26 countries. And basically what she tries to do is bring women up, and we'll discuss about that in the first segment, through education, through environmental sustainability issues, through health issues, by eliminating hunger and helping human rights issues, and many, many other tasks that she has undertaken. She is an entrepreneur, a TV personality, a coach, a public speaker, and definitely a philanthropist. I'm delighted to be on her board and call her my partner, my friend, my associate, and she will be joining us with a few comments in a few minutes. So moving right along now, the segments that we'll cover today are, the first one is on leadership and management fundamentals. We're going to give you some basics. Oops, there's Richard. Sorry, Mr. Heller, there you are. So might as well let me do the introduction for Richard too, because do you remember in the previous previous slide when I had his name under the book Train the Trainer, and I said he is a co-author to that book? Well, Richard, folks, or Mr. Heller, has been a professor with a number of colleges like the College of DuPage, Keller Graduate School of Management, DeVry University. He is an internationally recognized quality consultant. He is our quality guru in our university. He is certified for Lean Six Sigma, Green, and Black Belt. And anything you want to know about quality, which is, by the way, our last segment today. And I purposely placed it then because I want him to take the floor from that point on and walk us through. So with that, and again, as I said about Ragnar, if I were to state his credentials, it will take me over an hour. So going back to this, the first segment will be about leadership and management fundamentals. We're going to talk about the difference between managers and leaders and give you some guidance on that. Then we'll talk about time management and departmental meetings. Those two topics, by the way, you're not going to see many innovative things of my methodologies, but I was asked to address those two issues, so I have them there. However, starting with the fourth topic, effective communication techniques, you will see quite a few of our methodologies and innovative techniques that myself and my colleagues have developed. Then we're going to talk about, and here's the main thing, remember that, the alternative business practices, things that you haven't seen before, I guarantee you that. And as item 6 is how to implement change. And finally, for the quality guru, Mr. Heller, a synopsis to quality. So having said that, let me give you a little thought, food for thought, as Socrates did, as we said in the beginning. Look at these two people. They're looking at the same object, and one of them sees 3, the other one sees 4. Does that tell you something? Well, look at this next one. Again, they're looking at the same subject, 2 different individuals, and one of them sees a 6, the other sees a 9. And the reason we mention this, folks, is that different people see things differently, and therefore, if they see things differently, they understand things differently. If they understand things differently, most likely they learn differently, and that is the punchline to this. So people learn differently. As a matter of fact, here we have the 7 learning styles: the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic, the linguistic, logical, interpersonal, and the learner. I will briefly, in a monolectic explanation, I'll give you what these are. An auditory learns by listening. That's what he or she wants. A visual likes visual aids like these presentations, the slides that you see right now, for instance. A kinesthetic likes to apply things, do things by hands and so on. The linguistic is the one that likes to speak the message. I remember as a trainer, also as a professor, many times I would have people saying, "Sir, basically what you mean is," and then they were paraphrasing what I said, and that is a linguistic, likes to speak or write down, but mainly speak. A logical person is the one that likes to structure things, like a hierarchical tree diagram, likes to put things in order. And when I'm walking around during the training or lecturing in the university, I can see those styles. I can see people following the structure. They draw whatever I said, the main theme, then the sub-themes, and then the details underneath. And that I can tell is a logical person, logical style of learning. The interpersonal likes to bring others. Many times I thought that my students were talking and speaking to each other, wasting time, And when I tried to get their attention, they were saying, no, professor, we're just discussing what you just said. And that is the interpersonal style. And finally is the loner who likes to be all alone, does not like to be bothered. Now, why do we bring this? Because when we train people, and basically this is the idea and the main theme today, you need to understand all 7 styles and do something for each style throughout the day. We'll try to apply that today as well in our presentation. So now let's start with the first module. Okay. I'm looking at any questions on the YouTube, nothing yet. So if you do have any questions, my assistant here will give them to me and we'll address them ASAP. So let's address leadership and management. Is it the same? By the way, this is the topic that Ragnar took my book, Magnetic Charisma, which is all about leadership and management, the differentiation and the contrasting differences between the two. And that is the one that she translated or had it translated to Estonian. So we'll talk about managers versus leaders. We'll talk about what is management, what is leadership, and please take notes, if you will, or jot down your questions. As soon as this subject in another 5-6 slides is over, we'll open it up for questions for all of you. So let me begin with the definition of a leader, which, by the way, is something that I have developed, and you're not going to see in any of the management books that exist out there. A leader is the person with the artistic charisma to influence others to follow willingly in doing something positive. And I have underlined the most important elements of the definition. A leader is charismatic, folks, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a few minutes. But basically, he or she influences people, just like Ragnar has influenced those 26 chapter ladies, representatives, leaders around the world in 26 different countries. She did not force them to follow. They followed because they saw a charismatic leader, and now they want to contribute to her ideas. And of course, they're doing it willingly, and so do people with my friend Richard Heller. When he goes to Saudi Arabia, for instance, and other countries around the world, they follow what he says because he is doing something positive for them, and that's what leadership is all about. So now, what do managers do? Managers, folks, do certain basic things day in and day out, and they plan, they organize, they direct, they control, and what do they control, plan, organize, and direct? Resources in order to achieve organizational objectives. Okay, straightforward. Plan, organize, direct, and control. Resources like people, money, equipment, facilities, processes in order to accomplish an objective. When I go to companies to offer my consulting or advice, and I bet Richard Heller has been faced with the same thing too, they ask me, sir, can you teach our people management? And my reply is always, absolutely, yes, I can teach anybody management. And then when they ask me, can you teach them leadership? Then my reply is, I don't know, maybe, probably, let me see who I have. Why is that? Because leadership has certain or requires certain special attributes, characteristics, that artistic charisma that I mentioned a little while ago. So what do leaders do? Leaders, folks, unlike managers who plan, organize, direct, and control, leaders have a vision. Leaders have a mission in life. They have a goal. They have an objective. They have a project that they need to complete, a program and tasks. And did you notice how this thing is broken down from the major vision, mission, all the way down to the task? And that's exactly what leaders do. At a minimum, if they don't practice all those on a daily basis, they have a vision, a mission, a plan, and objectives that they do on a daily basis. Now, with many leaders and many companies, specifically managers out there, we've heard the expression, and I bet you have too, oh, we treat our people equally. We are trying to be as fair as we can by treating everybody the same. And I'd like to clarify the meaning of fairness, equality, and equity in business. Theoretically, those three seem to be the same, but they are not. And here is basically what differentiates equity, equality, and fairness. Okay. Look at this sketch right here, and I bet you have seen it before. It says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam, climb that tree. Now, how fair is that? But it's the same for everybody, right? However, I bet the bird and the monkey can do this in a moment. However, the elephant cannot, the fish cannot, the seal cannot, and a few others. So what does that mean? Are they stupid? Are they incapable? Not necessarily. So what we think is fair by treating everybody the same, it is not. And we clarify that in our presentations. And then equality and equity. Look at these three people, different heights, right? Now they want to see something, let's say a game that is played behind this fence. Obviously, mom can see, we have a mom with two kids, right? Mom can see the game, but the other two kids can't because the fence are there. So what do? We take 3 boxes and we give each a box to lift them up so they can see the game. And that's equality. Give everybody 1 box. How workable is it though? Does mom really need a box? She can see over the fence. The first kid, however, needs 1, and that's fine. But the third, by just treating everybody the same and giving box, not accomplish the goal. Here's what we should be doing. Mom does not need a box. The taller kid needs 1. And by giving 2 boxes to the shortest kid, now everybody can see what goes on beyond those fences. The idea to all these folks is that in business, if you treat everybody equally, which is what many organizations, civil organizations, and others do, may not necessarily be the most appropriate thing, but for a short period of time, remember this, short period of time, you might have to apply equity instead of equality. Final thing that I want to stress about leadership and management is what Gallup organization gave us about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago. They interviewed 8,000 companies around the world, and they looked for what does it take to engage people, why people are disengaged, and are there any people that are actively disengaged in business? So these are the 3 criteria: engaged, disengaged, and actively disengaged. And for your information, briefly, I'll mention an engaged person is positive, is enthusiastic about work, looks forward going to work, is positive, has positive attitude, loves the customers, loves the work, and so on. The disengaged are the ones that say, don't tell me to do anything extra, I'll work 9 to 5, and that's the end of it. They're apathetic, they do minimum work, but they do the work, by all means. The ones that are a real problem are the actively disengaged because they're negative. They don't care about anything else, and they even badmouth the company. The interesting thing that Gallup gave us, however, was the percentages on those 3 findings. Look at that. 30% only are engaged. A sum of 70% are somehow disengaged, and that is a real problem. So engagement is the key to what effective managers and or leaders should be doing. Finally, these are some of the attributes that leaders have. And here's the question that I'd like to ask, and we need to discuss this. Looking at how companies are managed and ran in America, and that mainly holds true to some extent with other countries as well, 78% of those companies have men as CEOs and only 22% as women. And that may be Ragnar's area as to why is that happening and what can we do. As a matter of fact, for Fortune 500 companies, it's only 6.6% that are women, folks, women CEOs or presidents. Why is that happening? And along with that, along with the leadership in businesses, should we look into what actually goes on around the world? And Richard can address that. Do we have leaders or we have technocrats? So with that, I'm going to open up the floor now for questions. Stop the screen sharing so my may come in. Ladies first. Ragnar, your comments, please, especially on the percentages of women versus men leaders, but everything else.
First of all, very honored and humbled to be in such a good company, and thank you for this incredible invite. And more than anything else, whoever you took the time today, I want to congratulate you, because by doing so, you are investing in yourself and in your future, and by doing so, obviously, also in your people, if you are leading people. What comes to leadership, then I think the most important is to really understand what is your intention and be intentional about your leadership. And if you really want to possess the desire to make a difference and place high value on people and are willing to really team up with others, and the significance is within your reach. So I think that we need to start small, but believe big, and find your why, and live every day as it really matters, because it does. And I think that's the main problem for women. Not even a problem, but we tend to put our kids, we tend to put the well-being of people around us as first, and then when it comes to our own desires, thinking big, believing that you can actually do that, that's number one, if let's say, obstacle when we see it from the personal growth perspective. If we see from leadership perspective, then I think that there's a lot to do with, obviously, we can't change the history from one century to another, although we have been trying, and I think there's a lot of work to do. And until we really do not have in our educational system equality as one of the main focuses, then it's really, truly hard to change things as such. And again, it starts from home. I'm a mother of a beautiful 8-year-old boy. And if I do not teach him how to support, elevate, and empower girls and women around, then the change is very hard to come. And the third point, which I want to address, this percentage particularly, I have been working with corporates, and I see that whether we want or not, then mothers are the ones which need to take time off when kids are sick. And this is a huge, let's say, problem still up to date, because they don't have the support systems that could help them to really advance on their ladder up. I have been there. It has been very challenging. I've been fortunate enough to have that support systems, but I understand that many or most of the women do not have that. And if we see, for example, it was very interesting this few days ago, just before the hurricane hit, I was actually watching the unicorns new show, and it was quite striking that only 2% of the financial world have been supporting the projects which has the potential to become a unicorn. We are talking about the evaluation more than $1 billion. Then there's only 2% that are women, and that's something I think that when we put intention and focus, we can do better. But there needs to be a support structure, mentorship, and really leadership on our behalf, that we help those women to rise and shine. And that's really, really what I do worldwide today.
Basically, that's what you do. Yes,
exactly.
That's what I want to mention. Yes, thank you, Richard.
I hope I added value.
Unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you, by the way, for coming in. Please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, John, for inviting me to this seminar. I really appreciate it. It's I've been to other Silk Road seminars and found that they're very, very interesting and enlightening, especially learning more about how all of us are similar. And you asked a question earlier about whether or not leadership can be trained. And in my experience, the answer is very clearly yes. But leadership is an attitude. And it's a feeling that I can remove barriers on a daily basis. So if I go into work and I remember starting out, I would when I grabbed the doorknob of the building I was going into, the first thing that went through my mind is I'm on stage. I've got an attitude that I have to present as a leader in order to get people to understand and follow what I consider they consider is best for them. Our job as leaders is to remove barriers related to one another, remove the barriers between our direct reports, remove the barriers, as Regnie is saying, to women advancing. Now think about it. If only 20% of the women are engaged in the directorship of organizations, we're losing 80% of the abilities that are in front of us all the time.
Yep.
And when we see we're killing people that way, maybe figuratively, but maybe really as well, because we're not taking advantage of those skills. And I don't care whether those skills are in science or in math or in management or in teaching or whatever, but we need to recognize that it takes 100% of the people in the world to make things better, not 60%, not 40%.
Thank you, Dick.
It takes all of us.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of those percentages, I noticed, or Gallup showed us that in HR across the USA and the world, 70% are women, and that even to them is unexplainable. That is the only department basically that is so excessively high when everything else, CEOs, presidents, and other directorships, as Dick said, are very low. Yeah. Okay, should we move on to the next topic, or Dick, do you have any more comments on this?
I was just going to add one more comment. Please. And I guess it goes back to something that Regnie said about women thinking first of the well-being of others and not having the belief in themselves that they can do it and that they should be doing it and that they need to step up to the plate. And men need to recognize that. And to the gentleman in the
audience,
listening group, the audience, again, I go back to say leadership is an attitude, and if the attitude needs to be removing barriers between people and making things successful. And if you can't do it, let me only suggest you fake it until you make it. You keep on doing it over and over and over again. Practice makes perfect.
Now, I need to share screen again so we can move on, so you know, okay? So for a moment, I'll need to do this. And bring this back up again. So we can continue with the second segment. And that is time management. Now, as I said in my opening remarks, time management and departmental company meetings I purposely made them a kind short. So let's conserve some time because time is of essence again, okay? We're running 10:33 now. So time management, how important is it? Many philosophers, including Theophrastus, ancient Greek philosopher, said it is the most expensive commodity we have in life, but we don't quite realize that. It is the process of planning and exercises, excuse me, and exercising control of time spent on various activities with the intent to improve productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. Okay, it is, as we said, the most important, the most crucial function. It is the most valuable function, okay? And we're gonna go over some principles that usually govern that topic. By the way, I have identified 26 principles. However, I will only address 15 of them. If there's a need for them, we'll cover them at the end. I have them at the end of the presentation. Basically, due to conserving time, I will only address 15 of them. The first principle says, folks, design an overall plan with objectives, missions, and tasks, just like leaders do. Write a daily plan down. Don't just say it's all up here. No, have it concretely defined on paper. Apply scheduling, and we have two different types, forward and backward. If you don't know what they are, ask me at the end or later on during the Q&A, I'll explain. And of course, be organized and prioritize. Those are critical attributes that you should have, whether you're a manager or a leader. You got to set deadlines with timetables. I'll finish this by Monday, the 22nd, whatever the case may be, at 5 p.m. or later on today by 2 p.m. Have a timetable. Now, if a meeting starts, let's say at 9 o'clock, and you show up at 9, sorry, you're late. Okay, so you got to keep the distractors away. Okay, people will start coming into your office, asking you questions, texting you, emailing you. Put them off for the time being. Say, I'm doing something important. I'll see you in half an hour from now, or whatever the time may be. Break it down into smaller tasks. I've seen students of mine and others not studying for the whole semester, and the last night before the exam, they try to study the entire night for 15 hours. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. You have to do it segmentedly throughout the semester and then recap at the end. And of course, start with the activities that are pleasing you. So now you have the feeling of accomplishment. You have the pleasure of doing something nice. Excuse me. As final segment here, we have take the small tasks take small breaks frequently. Okay, you've completed a task, take 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, here I have the very next item. Live by the 5-minute rule, which basically says at the end of every task, take 5 minutes to assess what you did, to praise yourself, to feel better, and then move on. 5 minutes throughout the day is not going to kill you. However, it will definitely give you the empowerment that you need to move on to the next task. Allow a little buffer. Okay, you think that this project will take 2 hours, maybe you need to assign 2 hours and 10 minutes just in case. And if you didn't use it, okay, you can always use it for the next task. And of course, have a clock in front of you someplace there so you can always be conscientious of what time is. And definitely, especially now with our phones, iPhones and other gadgets that we have, folks, we can send reminders to ourselves. There's no need nowadays to say, I forgot about it. We'll address the remaining 11 at a later time. So let's take a few minutes to comment on this, because here we're not talking about anything extravagant or innovative. They can see all this information. So let's stress the importance of time management. And whoever wants to take first, Richard, is it important? What do we do?
Yeah, it's extremely important. One of the exercises that I did a number of years ago, and actually I should repeat it on a regular basis, is on an hourly basis or a half-hour basis, go back and review what I did the last half hour and ask myself, did I really add value for whatever
That's
I was
amazing.
going to do?
Beautiful.
And it's a hard test. Keep in mind that there are professions, the legal profession charges on a minute-by-minute basis almost. So they have to make sure that every minute that they spend is billable. And my wife's an attorney, so it was.
I was going to say that, so you know all about it. With your
I
wife
learned
being an
about it
attorney.
that way, but it's a tough test. It's a tough test. The more you do it, the better you're able to develop that skill of making sure that what you do is important and adding value, and you're being effective. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. Ragnar, any comments?
This is absolutely the pillar of your success. Once you get it right, the rest will follow, because the game changer for me became from this area. We are taught methodically at school how to manage our time, because our time is always managed by someone else, by our teachers, by our parents, now we go to a corporate and the same thing starts to happen. People start to make up your day because there are requests for the meetings. Very important for you as a leader, and if you are visionary, not to get stuck and not to have the feeling that you are overwhelmed with everything. I just mentioned John before we started. While I'm working with people on personal levels and very high executives, then the number one problem what they're facing, and they do not even recognize it, is their calendar. Why? Because when I ask them, can you give me your 5 values? What is your life based off? And when they give me their 5 values, I say, okay, open your calendar and show me where are those 5 values in your calendar. And we don't have it. We have all our business meetings in our calendar because people are requesting time from us. By doing so, you are giving your power away to others to organize your day. So start to see and put in your calendar first your health. Your health is your wealth. If you do not have health, you do not have anything else. The family, the relationships that are important to you, those need to be there, number one. Whether it's breakfast with your family, whether it's lunch with your family, whether it's dinner with your family, and not just close one, friends, everything applies. And when we talk about really being up to beat with, we as a leaders, we always need to learn. So if you do not have those time slots before you start your week there, you're not going to learn anything. You're just going to follow the other people's requests. So take charge of your time management today by first doing the analysis, what is there, what needs to be removed, as Richard was saying, that we really truly need to understand, can I add value? For example, if I knew that I cannot add value, I would say, John, thank you for the invitation, but I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I do not accept the meetings which I see I cannot add value. And if the people are requesting my time, I will see, can I learn from them or can they learn from me? If the answer is no, you need to say no, and you need to practice saying no in a nice way, not just a negative way, but in a nice way where you see that in order to save the time, and time is the most precious thing that we have. So start to do that, and your life is going to change, and the success is going to be based on sustainable principles or pillars, however you want to call it.
Let me share with you folks and our audience, of course, something from a very good friend of mine who owned AC Nielsen Ratings, Art Nielsen. I was in his living room one night and we're talking about different things. And then I said, Art, now remember, a multi-billionaire. Every January, he was enlisted in Chicago as one of the top 5 billionaires of the state of Illinois. He founded and owned the AC Nielsen Ratings, the company that rates TV stations and everything else. Okay. And I said, Art, why people spend all their, by the way, keep in mind, he was in a wheelchair at age 75, 78 at the time. I said, Art, why are people killing themselves, spending their life, making money, and then once they make money, they spend it all to get their health back? And immediately he screamed, Patty, his wife, the security guards, I mean, he was a multi-billionaire, he had securities all over, jumped from behind the curtains and everything else, thinking that I was doing something to him. And he goes like that to them. Okay, he says, stop, no, bring my wife over. So now they bring the wife again in a wheelchair, and she says, John just said something very wise. Let's just listen to him now. But my question is, where was he 20 years ago? So again, what you just said, Ragnar and Richard, is absolutely true. Let's try to move on now to the next segment, which is about meetings. Okay, and let's see what we have next. Module 3, departmental meetings. By the way, we did very well in terms of time on this one. Oh, wow. We got it in about 10 minutes, 10:44. Okay, departmental meetings. Again, nothing really extravagant or innovative here yet, but starting with the next module, you'll see new methodologies and techniques, okay? Excuse me. So we already talked about time management, and of course, departmental meetings are part of it because they take time, okay? And here are some of the basics. When you decide to have a meeting, make sure those, what is called, or what people think are self-explanatory things, they're not. Time, place, agenda, participants, be well organized, have an agenda, and now you'll see why the people and the responsibilities and the roles that I have for departmental meetings become important. You'll be surprised, folks, how many of these plain, straightforward, simple things are forgotten during meetings, and I bet you have all seen this. During meetings, do not dominate the time. Ask questions, allow people to speak, encourage them to speak, okay? Ask them to be active participants, and then create an action items as to who is going to do what, who is going to deliver what by next week, next meeting, whatever the case may be. Now, excuse me, if there is a second meeting, will be, okay, make sure that they review the minutes and they approve the minutes from the previous one. I mean, those are basics. However, again, many individuals forget them because they don't understand or they don't assign the roles and functions that I'll mention right now. Vitally important, take a picture of the screen, this one or the next one if you want, folks, or call me or email me and I'll give you more information. First, we should have a planner, the person who plans the meeting, the time, the place. Then a coordinator who coordinates with other departmental directors, people, and brings in all the necessities, all the things that you need to run the meeting. Then you have a leader that may be you in this case, who leads all activities, a contributor who contributes ideas. A person is there intentionally stated in the meeting, brought to the meeting to say, yeah, whatever you discussed is fine, but how about this idea? So now they start discussing and brainstorming on the idea. As title or role number 5 is a timekeeper, somebody who, I mean, the organizer has said, let's say 10 minutes per subject. By the 9th minute, the person says 1 minute left. So, and if they haven't finished it, you should not go into the next subject, just table the motion, make a motion to table the topic and move on so you can always revisit it at a later time. A note taker, the person who takes notes and distributes the notes for the next meeting. And finally, a facilitator who ensures that everything is addressed and everybody is playing a role properly and equitably. Well, during meetings, we have seen all the different types of styles. A person who stands up and possibly says something interesting and the participants here are paying attention, okay? And here's another one who, I don't know what he's doing, but obviously he has put people to sleep, okay? And it happens. Or somebody else who is such an authoritarian style that says, I'm the manager, you listen to me. Well, folks, these may be styles that you have seen. However, not all of them are very productive. The one that I would say is the most productive out of all is the one where you ask people to participate, and they do actively participate, okay? And at the end of the meeting, say thank you to people. They took time. They gave you ideas. They contributed with more contributions. They added value, as we spoke about a minute ago. You need to realize, by the way, that different industries may be holding or managing meetings differently. I remember not too long ago, I was managing a chain of in the hospitality industry, hotels, and many times I would hold a meeting right before the day, 5 minutes, standing meeting. Everybody was standing, and I would tell them what was the special for the day, what was the important thing for the day, encourage them, motivate them, inspire them, and then said, go on. For instance, I vividly remember once we had the governor of the state come into our hotel, and he would have lunch in our place. Well, I notified, that was one of the main things that I mentioned, but you don't need to discuss that. So depending upon what the subject and the business is, you have different styles in running meetings. However, the 7 roles that I described before is the standard in a business setting. So now, any comments on that before we move on to the innovative things that we'll do? Anybody?
I would add, actually, because I think I have spent many, I would say months, if I gather all the times on being on corporate meetings. And I see the lack of it, or the main problems what we are facing, even though we, as you were saying, for example, regarding just to go back, the reminders and all of that. So we rely on someone who takes notes. But remember, we do not perceive the life or the situations or things as they truly are, but as we are. So if someone writes down those notes might not really work for you. So I'm inviting everybody to really take notes for yourself, and more accurately, what are the action points that you need to take today?
Action points, yes.
So it doesn't, we don't want this situation where there's even the memes which say that I'm coming from another meeting which should have been an email, no? So just to avoid that. And I think the key to success is the engagement. And it's not always easy to achieve it, because you have different people with different knowledge, experience, age groups, all of that, and have them engaged during, and especially when you bring different departments together or a department together, will be challenging. And you as a visionary leader need to have a strategy. Don't just go with the flow that someone made the agenda and let's address the points in the agenda. That's not engaging. That's where you lose the people. And when you don't have your people within the first 8 seconds, then they start to do this. So I would highly recommend to do that. And how to have the people engaged is actually by learning how to ask good questions. Because the better questions we ask, the better answers we get. And that's absolutely when I really started to pay attention how I was asking the questions and seeing the difference of an answer, just the same topic, but how do you really ask the question? It's beautiful. So those are just my two let's say, tips, which I have been growing by now leading all those meetings on.
Yeah, you have at least 26 chapters around the world, so you do run those meetings, and I've been to many of them myself. So, Richard, what's your take on this?
Thank you, Regne. You expressed a lot of my ideas as well, and thank you very much. What I find is people hate meetings, and the main reason they hate meetings is because the meetings don't get anything done.
Yeah.
It's just a perpetual meeting. And so that goes back to the agenda. I think the main purposes of meetings, most meetings should be decision-making. Are we going to do this? Or are we going to do that? And then assigning the activity, the action items from that. One question is always, okay, that's the way I think. How am I going to make the rest of the team believe in what I'm saying in that? And again, that's just by doing it. You know, you start with an agenda and you say, okay, you've talked for 3 minutes now. I'm sorry. Now it's time, either wrap it up or make a conclusion, or it's time for us to move on. Of course, there are different types of meetings, and we need to recognize that some meetings are more social than others. And I have two pieces of advice for meeting goers. One is to arrive early, which I apologize, I didn't this morning. I was having some Zoom problems. But arrive early, and that way you get to chat with other people on your team, because businesses and organizations are about people. They're not about the end up decisions that you make, the money that's done. It's about people, and if we can't work together, then why have a meeting? Why have an organization? So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you can start and stop on time and make good decisions, get things done in the meetings, you're going to have people come back to the meetings. How do we stop on time? It's real easy. I prefer to have a meeting start 1 hour before lunch and 1 hour before quitting, because people are not going to want to dig into their lunch hour for a meeting or stay late in order to listen to somebody else talk forever. So and once you get that philosophy that the meeting is only going to be done within that hour, and then ideally only use about 45 minutes of the hour to do the meeting, you know, you're going to have people coming in and recognize that, hey, those are meetings that get things done. I want to go there. I want to participate.
Excellent.
So I turn it back to you, but thank you for your comments, Rodney. I think.
Okay. Well, basically, the next topic is communication, but the one after that is about change. And what you're going to hear from me at that time is, when people participate, do not go back and change what they already proposed. So whether you're talking about a meeting or a change, ask people, as Ragnar said, to participate. But let's move on to the next topic, which is about communication. And here, folks, you're going to see towards the end of this segment, you're going to see some of my innovative ideas and methodologies. So communication, just like Richard was just saying a minute ago, how important it is. Because you're not talking about just processes, desks, computers, you're talking about people and communicating effectively with them being vitally important. Obviously, when you communicate, you want to be impressive, you want to be persuasive, you want to be tactful about what you do, you want to be diplomatic about it, because you might have some people who don't necessarily view things the way that you do. Obviously, you got to have power in what you're doing so you can convey the message and definitely be effective. So in my view, these are the 6 main attributes of an effective communication process. Well, what is communication? The exchange of information. That's all it is. You and I discuss, as we're doing right now, we're communicating, okay? But we're communicating through messages, and we have different styles. We have verbal, written, and again, nothing new thus far, right? Non-verbal, and of course, in terms of structure, we have formal and informal. Okay, you open up any management book, folks, you're gonna see all this. I haven't given you anything new yet, but I will in a moment. Okay, now, basically, the communication process involves a sender and a receiver. It involves a message. It involves feedback to make sure that they understand it. And of course, there's always distraction and noise, and these are the main elements that you've got to consider in communicating. We ask people to mute their speakers, so we won't be listening to their dog barking on the back or the kids screaming or whatsoever, which happens many times, okay, because you don't want distractions or other noise. And we're doing very well, by the way, thus far. So in effective communication, you got to understand the power of perception. People don't act, many times, many people do not act according to reality, but they act according to their perception of reality, what they think is reality. We have seen this a number of times. I've seen this at the university. Students think that Professor X is a tough professor. They don't know him or her. They've never taken a class with that professor. But because the perception is that he or she is a tough professor, students may avoid him or her, and that's the result of a perception which may not necessarily be true at all times. Another thing that we need to understand during communication is the difference between difficult people and different people. People ask me, John, how do you deal with difficult people in your meetings, in your training, in your business? And I usually tell them, in my view, there are no difficult people. There are only different people. And if I know where their differences come from, it could be culture, it could be ethnic, could be religious, could be anything. Once I know where those differences come from, I can definitely address them and communicate effectively. So in my view, unlike what most people think, I don't see difficult people. I see different people, and then I learn how to communicate effectively. Now, this is one of the new things that I don't think you have seen about motion, emotion, and communication, and I want you to follow this logic. And I'll go slowly, because it's not one of the easiest things. Now, I said there, people's statements trigger emotion. I say something, I say a joke, and you laugh. So my statement trigger laughter, which is the emotion. Now, emotions trigger motion, movement, action. If we agree on those two statements, let's see what we can do next so we can follow the depth of the essence of the communication process. If emotion triggers motion, then the person who controls your emotions dictates the motion that you're going to take. Do you agree? Look at it. Think about it. I'll pause for a moment for you to understand. The person who controls emotions, in essence, controls or dictates the motion you're going to take. Now, when you act on emotion, you are reacting. Leaders don't react, leaders proact. And leaders fully understand this. So that is why, as I say on the next slide, and please, let's conclude this segment here, you have the right to be angry. That's an emotion. But you have no right to have a temper, because that's a behavior, and behavior should be controlled and managed. So motion, emotion, control, temper, and everything else is part of what we've seen in communications when people have an argument, when people have a disagreement, okay? These things enter the process, and I want you to know what they are and the effect that they cause. Now, in the significance of understanding, there is actually even a competitor of mine by name Stephen Covey. But hey, when something is right, I'll mention it, and I don't care if I'm competing against them or whatsoever. Stephen Covey, folks, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said, understand to be understood. If you want to be understood by someone else, try to understand them first. First, you got to understand them, and then you reply, respond, you say something, and you expect to be understood as well. Now, we already mentioned the different styles earlier today, okay? And here they are again as a reminder to you. Dick, were you able to hear me this time?
Yes, yes.
Richard, are you there now?
I'm here now.
Okay.
My thing broke.
No problem. We never do anything important here, so you didn't miss anything.
I disagree.
Ragnar will cover this later, and that's important. Okay, so
Disagree.
here's the new thing that I want you folks to know, and I bet many of you have not seen. I know my colleagues have, okay, but most of the audience do not know this. And we call that the personality behavior awareness. Basically, it is a concept that we developed that helps you understand your personality and your communication style, other people's styles, and how to be effective in communicating with them. So it identifies your behavior styles, yours and other people's, and prepares you for the best communication approach possible. And here's an application that I have for this. If we presume for a moment that this blue square represents the people that you're communicating with, whether it is a meeting, a department, a company, a community, whatever the case may be, let that blue square represent the population you're dealing with. We've divided that in left and right by drawing a vertical axis, and upper and lower by drawing a horizontal axis. Bear with me for a moment. This is critically important for you to understand how this works, and you'll see how it is applied in business and specifically in leadership. People who fall in the upper half, the two quadrant, we call this a quadrant, and this is another quadrant. So people who fall in the upper half, they like to control a situation. People who fall in the lower half become emotional about situations, about conditions, about things. People who fall in the left half, these two quadrants, are people who like to ask, and you'll see the type of asking that I'm referring to, where people who fall in these two quadrants here are people who like to tell others. So again, what do we have? People who control or emote, tell, and ask. Okay, now, the people who fall in this quadrant up here, who like to control and ask, we call them systematic, and they keep on asking questions. And now I'll give you an example, and you'll probably recall people that fall in that category. You discuss something, whether it is a meeting or project, whatever, and this person says, why did you do that? And you go on and you explain. And what else could you have done? You go on and explain. Well, are there any other options that you have? Have you looked into this? So they control the discussion by asking questions. What that means is you better have the patience to reply to those questions and understand that this person is not arrogant. He's not trying to stick it to you. That's his or her style, to keep on asking questions. On the top right, we have the directives who like to control by telling people. Basically, here's what they do. Well, Ragnar, that's what we do in our business. If you like it, you stay. If you don't let the door hit you on the way out. But there's no but. But I have a question. Forget about the questions that you have. That's what we do. Are you following how they're controlling by telling? They don't like to expand. They don't like questions. They don't like to elaborate. That's the dictatorial style that they have. And we have these people. Then down here, folks, we have what we call the talkatives. They tell, but they become emotional about what they say. For instance, and we've seen this when I was with New York Life, I saw this all the time, and I trained the people on this. A person tried to sell a health or life insurance policy to a prospect, to a client, and the client at some point said, okay, and how do I pay for this? That means, folks, I'm ready. I want a policy, I want to buy it. And the person said, but wait, let me explain to you a few more things, and goes on and on and on and on and explains. Okay, and can I pay this on a monthly basis? But here, let me also explain this. I didn't mention, stop at some point. There's no need to go on and keep on telling, but they do because they become emotional and they don't know when to stop. And finally, we have this quadrant down here where people are governed by asking and emoting. Now, remember the asking up here with the systematic? This person up here was asking to find out. This person down here, now the emotional, asks to get permission. Boss, can I do that? Or he asks another colleague, what do you think that the people will think if I did that? So they ask why they become emotional. What I'm getting with all these folks is that we have, and I bet all of us have seen these styles, and we've met and we've dealt with these styles in business. The question is, what do you do as a leader if you want to be an effective either manager or leader? We train people on this topic, and we say, by the way, I have some pictorials here of what these styles usually look like. And then, and this is the last slide, by the way, on this topic, let's say that you're identified as systematic. And we do have, by the way, 156 questions that we ask in order to identify a person, by the way, and you'll see on the final slide that we use that in order to identify people for executive positions, because you don't want an emotional to run the business and keep on asking others for permission to do things. You probably want a systematic or a directive, okay? So now, if you are identified as a systematic, what we train people on is, how do you deal with a directive? Now remember, the directive does not want to answer any questions, and the systematic has plenty of questions. So those two are going to have a conflict. So we train people now, we train the directive on how to listen to a systematic, and we also train a systematic, and we say, in dealing with a directive, do not ask 15 questions, ask 3, the most important. Then if you're, again, a systematic, how do you deal with the talkative? Now remember, these two folks may have a field day because the systematic likes to ask questions and the talkative likes to answer. So they never get anything done unless you train them that there's, just like Richard was saying a little while ago, you need to move on, okay? Because these two can be spending the entire day asking and replying, asking and replying. And then if you're dealing with an emotional and you ask questions, they may be traumatized. Oh, why is he asking all these questions? Am I not good enough? Am I having a problem? Am I in trouble? So these things happen. So you got to know how to deal with the emotional. And of course, if you are a systematic, how do you deal with other systematics? Okay, so we train people on all that, and specifically we train them on selecting and recruiting executives. We train them accordingly, we develop their skills, and we do this as part of our continuous improvement. I hope you liked this concept because it's kind of unique. So comments on overall effective communication. Let me take the share screen away. Please, anybody?
Well, again, from experience working in a corporate and with a lot of different cultures, it is very crucial to understand with whom do you work with, and in order to really have a great results, then you need to understand who they are, what is their language that they are speaking, and really truly emphasizing on that, because in the end of the day, when with all of those, you as a leader need to deal with all of those, and obviously you are one of them. But in the end of the day, you want to master the art of how to communicate with all of them, and then it will take time, because it will take a lot of patience as well, as usually very driven leader wants to have the results really quickly. So if you do not see this way of growing people, and also not only trying to adjust how they are, but teaching how to speak with you and what your expectations out of this communication is, then that's the way to do. And again, to really empower people that whatever their style is, that they can always come to you, and you have the perfect language for the communication that needs to happen in order to deliver the results. So very important, again, to understand who your team is, but when you are in the process of building your team or putting your team together, then try what we do as an entrepreneur, more than anything else, we are attracting the people that are like us. And now when there's bunch of all falling in the same quadrant, then we have a problem because nobody is doing the rest of the work. So you need to really understand that you have the perfect, not balance, but harmony, as I learned, in our companies, that we do pay attention that there is someone who really fills up those. I wouldn't even say that it's weakness, but something that might not be your strength area, and they can really then feel that they're adding value and they're valued. So very important when you put your team together.
Richard?
All I can do is ditto what Regne said. Thank you very much. It's that conflict between harmony and differences. I've often said in some of my training that if my companies only hired people like me, all they would have is a bunch of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Americans. And then I wouldn't need anybody else because everybody would be like me. And I wouldn't have the advantage of the other people who
Diversity.
challenge my ideas and say, hey, that's wrong, that's wrong. I remember John and I were talking years and years and years ago. John, you probably don't remember this, but I was talking about statistics, which is one of my strengths. And I said, well, we need to take the chi-squared test. And we need to use this, which uses the word chi as a Greek word. And John corrected me and said, that's chi. So I've learned something from John's ethnic background is different from mine, and I wouldn't have known that otherwise. Thank you, John.
Actually, I had forgotten about it, but I'm glad.
But it does take these differences, and is that earth-shattering? Absolutely not. But some of the differences that we have come across, where I might think, or you might think, that this is the only way that we should go, to find out that it really helps to have somebody in the room that says, no, we've got to try something different. And that's the leader's responsibility, I think, is, yes, it's control, but control with a velvet glove. We don't control with a hard fist. That's my input.
Okay, let's try to move on then to the next subject. And now, folks, our audience are going to see something new, innovative, and creative in many, many respects. Okay, in this topic, we'll address the alternative mode of doing business. Let me just preface my remarks by saying for way too long, we've been accepting things as the norm when actually it is not. And I will address these topics now and what the so-called accepted normalities are, which in many cases are even counterproductive, believe it or not. So roll up your sleeves and be ready for the journey, because this is going to be something different and innovative and different to begin with, okay? Basically, we'll show you alternative ways of running your business, growing your business and your people, and look into the so-called problematic business practices that we should drop. So let's begin with the trust issue. Is there trust in business? If we trust our people, do they trust us? Let me just say this about trust, about the importance of it, okay? Here, let's just think about the following. I bet many of us have taken an elevator to go to the 5th floor, the 10th floor, the 25th floor, whatever the case may be, okay? Now realizing that when we take the elevator to go up there, we trust the person who last prepared or maintained the elevator. We trust that person with our lives. And I don't know, folks, about you, but once I was stuck between the 23rd and 24th floor of a high-rise building. And trust me, that was not a nice feeling, looking at the elevator going a few feet up and then a few feet down and going over and over. Trust me, it was a very scary moment. I vividly remember the time that I was stuck in there. I called my wife and I said, I love you. And then I called my attorney and I said, that's what goes on. Please, if anything happens. In other words, I was ready. I was thinking about, hey, that's the end of my life. Because if the elevator plummeted from the 23rd floor, that's the end of it, right? So now what I'm getting to is that we trust the engineer who last repaired the elevator with our life, and we don't trust the people that work for us, whom we have inspected, we checked references, have been with us, we know who they are, we know what they do, and then at the end of the day, we have something like this. We have somebody checking their purses to see if they have stolen something. So instead of saying thank you for giving us 8 hours of your life, we accuse them as being thieves, and we check to see if they have stolen anything. Do you realize how detrimental that may be? And that needs to change. Another thing is, well, as we said, companies and leaders' responsibility is to grow, but then you need to commit to what you want to do along with your people's commitment. I don't know, I know my colleagues know this, but for the audience benefit, the story about the chicken and the pig that goes as follows. They were walking down the street one day, and the chicken sees a restaurant that had lines waiting even outside on the sidewalk, and a sign, ham and eggs, and they had, or omelets and sausages, and they had lines. So the chicken now says to his buddy, the pig, hey, buddy, why don't we start a restaurant? We have what it takes. See, they're selling eggs and bacon, eggs and sausage. We can produce them. And the pig says, oh, no. Why, buddy? Don't you trust me? Yes, I trust you, but I'll be committed. You will only be a participant. Are we having participants in our business or committed people? That's vitally important, and you as leaders need to think about that. Now, complaints, that's another issue. Managers usually don't like to hear complaints, and they have people saying, go take care of it. Look at this manager right here. His phone is ringing off the hook with complaints, and he tells the manager, I don't want to hear any more complaints. Go take care of it. And the poor guy says, yes, boss, I'll manage. Now realizing that complaints are blessings from the sky, as I say. They are like a red hot arrow that says, here's a problem, fix it. And the person who complains, folks, please remember this, is giving you one more chance to straighten out what is wrong or else. Basically, people who complain, assuming that the complaint obviously is legit, are free consultants. Do you understand that? They're free consultants to you because they point out something that you haven't seen and needs fixing. So again, handle complaints properly. And we say, welcome complaints. Obviously, you want the complaints to keep on going down because that's how you improve. And we'll talk about continuous improvement. But when a complaint comes up, please welcome it. The next thing is rewarding your people. Excuse me. Remember the following, folks. Things that are rewarded and appreciated get done. This is a very profound statement. I'm going to repeat it. Things that are rewarded and appreciated get done. However, the rewards have to be realistic, have to be attainable, have to be equitable. Okay? Not like what the picture shows right here. And Ragnar already mentioned a little while ago the difference between balance and harmony. And folks, we've been taught, have balance in your life. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of personal life, okay? Well, you drive for an hour to work and an hour to come back. Who pays, who are those 2 hours taken from? So if you have 8, 8, and 8, somebody has to lose 2 hours so you can go to work and come back from work, right? What I'm getting to is that if you're going for balance, something will happen throughout the day, and that balance will no longer exist. You're going to have an imbalance. Something will go the other way. What we preach and what we teach people to, folks, is harmony. And if you think that you need to spend 10 hours today at work, or 2 extra hours with your family, with your kids, with your loved ones, with your community, whatever the case may be, please do so, because that is the harmonious thing to do. And do not go for the exact balance, because now you have the agony. Oh, I'm not balancing out. I'm not, okay. So go for harmony instead of balance. Usefulness is the other topic that I usually address when we train people. And here's the example that I give most of them. If we get 3, 4, 5-year-old little boy, and we put the boy, can you see this, with a toy? Can you see this? Good. Or a gold watch. A gold watch or a toy. The gold watch, by the way, let's say is $1,000 watch. And this is a $1 plastic, do you see this? Plastic toy. What do you think that the child will take? The $1,000 watch or the $1 toy? Tell me. The toy or the watch? Anybody? Richard,
obviously the toy, because
the toy.
he knows what to do with that.
Yeah, it's useful to the child. It makes sense, can relate to it. And the moral of the story here, this example is, are we making our people's lives useful when they come to work? Do we challenge them, and do we help them grow? Do we give them continuous improvement and make their lives useful, instead of just, remember what the directive style said, do this and don't ask questions? That's not a way to run a business. Some additional problematic business practices. The way we train our workforce, and folks, this is something, again, we need to reconsider. We ask people to bring defects down from 5% to 4%. And if I have people like Richard in my group, a statistician or a mathematician, so, sir, you want us to go from 5% to 4%. That's 1/5 down, that's 20%. 20% improvement is a lot. I don't know if we can do that. So why even refer to defects when we can do the same thing by saying, I want you to bring, see, when you have 5% defects, that means you have 95% good. So now I want you to bring the 95% up to 96. It's only 1% percentage point. Do you see the difference? Mathematically, both look like a 1%, but essentially they're not. So present things in a positive way, from a positive prism way of lens, if you will, okay? And look at mistakes by not putting people down, and definitely praise in public and correct in private, as we say. Here is some practical applications or thoughts, or food for thought that I have for you. If someone does not know how to swim, do we take that person, we throw him or her in the deep end of a swimming pool and say, swim now, we'll teach you next week how to swim? I don't think so. We'll go in the light area and we show them how. We'll probably put some safeties on the arms and so on to help the person learn how to swim, and then we go into the deep water. I think you will agree with me on that. Well, here's another example. We just hired, let's say, a fireman, a fire person. The very first day of hire, we don't tell this person, go put out a fire. We train them first. And I hope you'll agree with me. Same with policemen. You hire the policeman. You don't tell them the very first day, go fire, to that riot that there is out there and put it out. There's no way the person can handle it because it has not been trained yet. Same holds true with doctors, folks. Okay, here we have some doctors. They were hired. We don't tell them go perform a surgery. you train them first. You put them through a training process. However, with management, what do? We just hire the manager, go out there and manage now. And that is wrong because we don't give them the tools and the techniques that they need. I'll use this example for our audience mainly. I know you two folks have seen this and you know this, okay? But for our audience to understand what we preach and what we believe in, okay? We believe in training. And here's an example that I'll use to cement this concept. Say you have 20 employees, you're the manager, and with all the compliance, time cards, payments, corrections, state regulations, and everything else that you need to do, you just don't have time to do all the work. And on top of it, supervise the people. So you say, out of the 20, I'll select one to be a supervisor. So you take, let's number them, number 20th becomes now your supervisor. Next day, you take number 20th and yourself, you go to the floor, you go back to the place and you say to the remaining 19 employees of yours, well, ladies and gentlemen, from now on, this person, number 20, will be your supervisor. And the remaining 19 are saying, why him or her and not me? But that's not as detrimental as the following. If that same day, let's say, something happens in the business and conflict arises, what does this person, the newly appointed supervisor, know about handling conflict? Maybe not much, or some empirical things that he or she has accumulated over the years, okay? However, that person most likely will not be as accepted, and most importantly, does not know how to handle situations. What we propose, folks, is qualifications training. You go back to your 20 people and you say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to need a supervisor. We have a 2-week training program, and whoever wants to be considered as a supervisor has to go through the program. Let's say that number 1, number 12, and 20 become interested and they go through the training program. Now you have 3 people trained. You can still appoint the number 20 that you initially wanted to appoint as your supervisor, but isn't it true that you do have 2 other people as backup to give days off or possibly be utilized in another department? But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, that person now has gone through training, knows how to handle conflict, knows how to handle situations on the workplace, on the floor, and most importantly, is accepted by the remaining 17 people in our example, because now they all know that this person is knowledgeable, this person has been trained. So we have what we call a qualifications training and an eligibility list. With that, before we move on to the next topic, and I think we're doing okay with time, let's see what we can do by going back. Let's take any comments on the topics that we mentioned here. Different lady, what do you think? Tell me, talk to me. Whoever wants to go, just smile, go. What did you like out of the many things that I covered?
I think you covered a lot, John.
Okay.
While you were talking, I was just running through some numbers in my head.
Sure.
And there are approximately 4 billion women in the world. Think about that, 4 billion women.
Half of
A good manager is a person who is only 1 in 1,000. And we're only using 10% of the women available. That means we have 3.6 million women who have the qualifications to be a good manager.
And they'll not get used. Yeah.
And they're not going to get used. Take it one step further. Einstein was 1 in a million. That means that there are over 3,000 women equivalent to Einstein who we're not benefiting from.
Yeah.
Now, that's the result of our prejudices against using women in business. Think of the loss to humanity that we're encouraging this way.
Yep. And that was what we first addressed in our first module with Ragnar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the question of trust.
Yeah.
And prejudice is a lack of trust. And from a leadership point of view, it goes back to the idea of what's your attitude? Is your attitude not to have trust? Is your attitude to be prejudiced? Is your attitude to destroy your company because you're not taking advantage of the people that are working with you already?
Yep.
Not to mention the thousands of people that you're not utilizing.
Great.
Your lack of trust, your lack of okay, so I'm sorry, that was my
No, that's fine. We just have 2 more modules to cover. So Ragnar, some quick comments.
It's my math background. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly all right. Ragnar.
What really got my attention sort of is, I think, the balance and the harmony, and I think that was something that when we briefed also the presentation, then it really struck me in a way that we tend to have a lot of high expectations towards ourselves, and also the expectations towards ourselves and the promises that we give to ourselves are yet the first ones that we fail to deliver. And I think the harmony and when you try to apply that to your life as a leader, your business success as a leader needs to come down with a very clear picture of your vision and how are you able to encourage your people to really follow you, in a sense that they really take your vision and run with it. And that's where the real harmony comes into play, when you let the people to really be part of that vision, where they put their own touch to it and make it their own. And that synergies and those things will create a magical results. And I think this concept again, when you were taking notes, I hope that you did put there what are the action points for you in order to achieve that harmony, and not really going after the balance, which we know that's it's something which is an illusion and it doesn't really exist in our daily lives. We see we have so many roles. You do one, then you're like, oh my God, my kid is calling. Oh my God, my wife needs to go there. Oh my God, my health needs attention. So you're never really like, balance is something which I think it's illusional to think that we have it all the time. But again, your creative process should be like seasons, that you are peaked and then you take the time to reflect. You take the time to really recover and recharge, and then you go again. And that's the leadership to really have the courage to take the time off, because your rest and recharge are as important as your peak performance time. And this is what I call harmony in my viewpoints. I hope it added value.
That was good. Well, Richard, based on what you said and also what Ragnar discussed and we discussed in the first segment, back in 2011, University of Chicago asked me to present work that I've done on women leaders around the world. I don't know if you can read this, if you can see this, okay, 2011, University of Chicago. And my 10-year research, having been around the world to many different countries and having dealt with many women leaders in both political and the business arena and even universities, the academic arena, I came up with that research, which they liked, and I presented it at the University of Chicago. All right, let's try to move on to the last two segments that we have now. And we're doing fairly okay with time. Okay, change. That is an area that we can all talk about, and let's make it short, sweet, and to the point. Look at this gentleman there. The leader says, I don't want to change, but I want everybody else to change. And if this one, here's this one who says, who wants to change? Everybody raise their, I'm sorry, who likes change? Everybody raise their hand. However, look at the next question. Who wants to change? And no hands go up. Okay, can you see those two? Let me just go back up here again. Who wants change? Everybody wants change. Who wants to change? Nobody does. I want others to change, not me. And that is a common phenomenon that we have. Excuse me. With change, folks, we have identified three main segments, topics, chronological topics. I have the transition as the largest one between the end of an old process and the beginning of the new, because that's where most of the commotion, most of the challenges, most of the problems arise. And once you go through the transition checklist and you check off everything, then the new beginning is flowing properly. Basically, for those three steps, what I want you to know that there are things that we do prior, during, and after the change. And we also need feedback. Again, something very concrete. If anybody wants to take a picture of this, that's fine. Basically, that's what we do. But now let's look deeper into the change process, okay? Why do people perceive change negatively? Why are they reluctant to change, okay? Are they hesitant to admit that there's something wrong? Yeah, because managers, myopic managers, as I call them, go to them and they say, you're doing this wrong. You need to change. Duh, that's not a way to implement change, folks, okay? Please keep in mind that change is best implemented, as we discussed earlier, if it comes from within. And I think the pictorials that I have right there express exactly the significance of the positive, if it comes from within, and the unwelcome change, if it comes from outside. Okay, I think this is representative of what we're about. So, present change as an organizational renewal. As a way of doing things in a different way, a more effective way, a new way of doing things, a more efficient way. And the sport of high jumping has been very instrumental and powerful in implementing change. I know you have seen this, but again, our audience haven't. So years ago, folks, as you probably remember, we used to have in the sport of high jumping what was called the scissors technique, where the athlete, just like this one, approached the bar and with one leg after the other, like that's why they called scissors, because it was going like this, was trying to go over the bar. That was a good technique, and records were set and broken. But somebody discovered the Western roll, which looks like this, with the body extended horizontally. The athlete tries to go over the bar, and that was the Western roll. And those two techniques were followed for many, many, many years, until 1960 Mexico City, Mexico Olympics, where Dick Fosbury shocked the world by jumping 7 feet, 4.5 inches. That's 2 meters and 10, 12 centimeters by approaching the bar backwards like this. And ever since we have the Fosbury flop. And the idea to these folks is, was there anything wrong with the two previous techniques? Of course not, but somebody discovered something more effective. So transfer this now to your business. Are you doing anything drastically wrong in your business? Probably not. Of course not. But could it be a better way of doing things? And that is where the continuous improvement that Richard will talk about at the end of this, or mainly in the next segment. So again, there may be nothing absolutely wrong that you're doing, but could it be a better way? And that is an obligation that we have to keep on examining. Before we get to the last segment, which is on quality, let me see if we have any comments on this. Anybody about change? Obviously, These topics, folks, are topics that can take a whole day or a whole semester, believe it or not. But for the time being, any comments?
I think the most important part of the change is to prepare your people before you take action, because again, we know that the one thing that we have been really brought up is to chase the certainty in life, and yet it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in any level of our life, even though if we think so that it does. So once people think that, usually people see change as a challenge, not a place of growth, or not a place of opportunities to grow or make things better or leave things better than they were before. So I think again, as Richard was emphasizing before as well, it's all about your attitude, and the attitude that you have inside as your environment for people to grow. So any change, you need to prepare your teams that it is good. It is for your best interest, for the business and for the people. So. And if you have strategies and tactics like this, then you will be very good, on very good way.
Yeah.
My only addition to that is that change usually, if we don't have control, it reverts to the previous way we were doing things. So if there's a problem that comes up, our people are going to go back to the old way of doing things. I like to call this the Weight Watchers business plan, so that if you're going to lose weight, you got to keep those controls in place, or you're going to be back where you started from.
Yep.
And with respect to the attitude, as a leader, we have to expect, and we have to prepare our teams for the reality that there's going to be unintended consequences. And I'll talk more about that in quality, but we have to respect that none of us are perfect.
Not even you?
Well,
Okay.
just ask my 15 former wives. No, none of us come up with the perfect plan, and we have to realize that even our best decisions have some dark spots in them, and we have to be humble enough to be able to say, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best idea. How can we change it? How can we build on this and still make it work?
Excellent. I'm looking at the questions on the YouTube, and I want to thank and congratulate a former student of mine by name Nick Silo, who says, great examples. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Silo. I remember I had you in my class something like 8-10 years ago, and you're still there, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So moving on to the last topic that we have, which is Mr. Heller's area of expertise. So let's go for it. And let's see, what do we have? Quality fundamentals. Now, please, folks, realize that quality is a topic that could take a year to cover, and sometimes you even get a degree, a college degree that takes 4 years to address. Okay, by all means. So please do not expect to become an expert in quality in the last 15 minutes that we have. However, we'll try our best to give you some highlighters, some points that you can utilize, and feel free to contact us for future references. So, speaking of quality, how do we define quality? Take any books on quality, and there are plenty of them, thousands of them out there. The one that we use in our university, folks, and in our business is the following. You know that you have quality when the customer returns and the product doesn't. It's a very profound statement, short, sweet, and to the point. If the customer returns and the product does not, you know that you have quality, or at least you're right there. And that is very fundamental. So What is quality? I just defined it for you. And now here's a question, food for thought. Is a Mercedes a quality car or a Toyota? Okay, and Richard will explain that in a little while. The benefits from having quality, folks, are addressing or touching 4 different areas: customers, organizations, employees, and society. And we felt it was a kind of important to highlight some of these influences or influencers, if you will. Benefits to customers, okay? High quality products and services help customers build loyalty and confidence in the place. They are predictable. They know I go to that business and I always get the same product. It's the repeatability that Richard teaches in his courses. There is consistent performance, so they always know that they're going to find the same thing. They're reliable, and definitely there's loyalty. It builds loyalty. Obviously, there's another 500 attributes and benefits that we don't have the time to address now. Benefits to the organization. When an organization believes in quality and implements quality, we have predictable products and services. We have consistent performance. You diminish problems, issues, defects, okay? And there's continuous improvement with the competitive advantage now over your competition being increased, and definitely you become more profitable. Again, another 500 benefits that we just don't have the time to do that. Benefits to the employees. Quality brings customers back, therefore the company now becomes profitable, so the employees now have a job and we have job security. The employees are happy because they know that they're doing something good that the customers like. And along with that, you build loyalty between employees and clients. And of course, employee turnover is minimal, and you enhance a company that is profitable because of the quality they provide. Obviously, they will probably offer more benefits to their employees, such as benefits, higher pay, and so on. And definitely benefits to society, folks, because when you offer quality, you remain open, you are in business. You're not going to see signs closed or moved away or whatsoever. So it's vitally important that you provide quality so that even the society can benefit from it as well. Now, to ensure quality, you need to win people's commitment. And we already talked about the pig and the chicken a little while ago, okay? So I hope you remember that. You've got to commit to your people, you've got to commit to quality, and remove the insecurity of I got fired, I just lost my job, company's not doing well, the company needs to cut down some people. Why? Because we lost business. Why did we lose business? Because the product or the service was not of quality. So now you can understand the problems that we have. So when we talk about quality, we definitely address all possible functions of a business. And what is known as, and that is known as total quality management. And Rachel will elaborate on this in a few minutes ago, down the line. Now, speaking of total quality management, we're talking about top all the way to the bottom, from the president of a hotel, for instance, all the way to the doorman or the parking lot person, or the parking people and so on, waiters, busboys, waitresses, managers, catering departments, and everybody has to breathe quality. Okay. Obviously, there are quite a few quality gurus that we have studied in our lives, with Deming being one of them. And for our audience purposes, if you don't know who Deming is, we strongly suggest, and I bet Mr. Heller will suggest that too, please Google Edward Deming or Dr. Edward Deming and his life. You will learn plenty. He's the one who initiated the PDSA cycle. And along with him, another quality guru introduced the PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, and act. Okay. These are some of the techniques that we teach out there when we try to implement change. The 5S is another tool that we use, and basically they present this as a Japanese technique However, it initiated with Ford, believe it or not, with the I can technology, the terminology, but I will get to that some other time. So the 5 S's refer to sort, straighten out, shine, standardize, and sustain. Okay. Now, if you want specifics on that, sort means proper arrangement. Of course, Rachel will talk about this. Straighten out, set them in order so you can have quality, okay? Shine, clean up, polish, and of course, standardize. By the way, I do have an excellent technique on standardized processes. If we have time, I'll show it to you at the end. And finally, sustain whatever changes and improvements you have made. Now, along with these concepts, we also have what we call the visual workplace or the visual factory. And basically, I want you to remember that the next inspector in your business is your customer. So if you don't provide quality, he or she is not going to be very busy. Now, the purpose of this is to make problems visible. And I bet you have all seen places like a grocery store where you go to shop, and now one of the cashiers has some type of problems with the cash register or a person's credit card or whatever the case may be, and now the light flashes right above like this. So now the manager knows that that person has a problem, so he or she now goes to that cash register, cashier, to resolve the problem. Making visual is a faster and better way to introduce things. Here's another way of making things visible. Look at this board with the tools, and pay attention to the hammer that you see in the center. Look at this next slide. The hammer is missing. So now you know what's missing, so you try to identify, if you need it, who has it and what happens. Obviously, let me close the day today with this final thought and the importance of have people buy in. Let me preface this by saying a former student of mine by name, Oscar Estrada, who was an exceptional student, and Richard knows him personally, was the one who proved me wrong once because I was telling them, you got to envision the corner office, and it will take you 5, 7, maybe 10 years to get the corner office. But because you were so good, he got it in 3 years. So when I invited him to be a guest speaker to my classes, he said, says to the students, let me tell you folks, I proved the professor wrong because I got the corner office in 3 years instead of 5, as he was suggesting. Basically, what I'm trying to convey to you through this is that I had instilled in their mind the ultimate goal, what they should be going for, not just a job, but a career with an important position, a corner office. And here's the metaphor that I'm using. Let's say that you're on vacation in this place, which looks almost like the place where Ragnar is, a nice seafront, and you are in one of those homes up there, but you know that behind this mountain, do you see this mountain here? Behind this mountain, there is a nice resort place that people are talking about, and that is like a paradise. That is where you should be vacationing, and that's what the place looks like. But you haven't seen it yet. So one day you go down to the port. Remember, you're here, right? So you go down, do you see the boat here? You go down to the port, you take the boat to go to that paradise place. You're on the boat now, and the captain comes up to you and says, hi, folks, how are you doing today? What do you want to ask, and what do you want to find out from the captain? How fast the boat goes? Not really. What's the capacity of the boat? Maybe that'll be nice to know, but not necessarily something for you to be interested in. How many lifesavers the boat has? That may be of interest to you in case something happens, okay? How fast the boat goes? Not necessarily. What I'm getting with all these folks is that we as professors at the universities and trainers, many times, we tell people, learn this, you will need it later. Find out how much this boat is worth. Find out how fast the boat goes. I don't want to know that stuff. What I want to know, the end goal. the corner office, that place. And that's what I want the captain to talk to me about. With that in mind, I want to thank you. But before we close, let's keep that beautiful place out there and ask for the colleagues of mine to make some comments. My God, our time is perfect, folks, 11:58. So we have a couple more minutes to comment on this.
I would just comment, as Richard is the true expert in that. I would just
You'll do him. Okay.
I would pay attention that when you want to grow or scale your business, this is one topic that you need to be excellent, and this is your quality, because people will follow your brand when you have those standards. And I think the 5 S's are very good tactics in order to achieve it. But again, Richard,
take it away. Take all the time you want. Don't worry about the 2 minutes.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time because I think that you covered a lot, and I'm really grateful that you invited me into this, John. I will disagree a little bit with you, Regne, and say that the #1 job of quality is something I learned from a singer a few years ago, Aretha Franklin, whose song was Respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. And I think that you can't have quality, you can't have business, you can't have customers without singing that song to yourself every single minute of every single day, because it's the respect that we have for each other that makes things happen. And without it's people, I've always said, it's not the silly little millimeter that you're in spec or out of spec. It's the people that make it that way. It's the people that have the drive to want to do the right thing, that want to do it the best way, not my way, but the best way. The expert is the person doing the work, not me walking in with a lab coat on and saying, hey, you're supposed to do it this way. It's the person who's been at that job, that machine, or at the desk, or whatever it happens to be, 8 hours a day for the whatever their time at the organization meant. They are the experts, and they can teach me a heck of a lot more than I can teach them. And that's the area of respect. And
So
again,
well, I'm looking at the comments here, folks, from YouTube. And here we have a professor from the University of Athens, Katya. Dr. Katya says, this was wonderful. I learned many new things today, and you have provided me with a lot of food for thought. Congratulations to all 3 of you. Excellent presentation. Thank you. And I don't see many questions, but basically most of them are on thank you, thank you, thank you. It was excellent that we had this breakup. The breakup, here's some other comments. The breakup that you had and bringing in other people, Dr. Kalaras, that helped immensely. So that's, I really thank you greatly, both of you, for beautifying and enhancing this endeavor that we had scheduled for today.
And may I only say it was an honor presenting with you, Regne. Thank you very much. And John as well.
Yes,
Like,
indeed. Especially, Richard, if you take under consideration that they had a typhoon or a disaster for the last 3 days, and when we talked about last night, the poor lady had to travel to another city to have electricity, to have power, to be here today. So we are really, really grateful, Ragnar, for doing this. Indeed, you beautified our presentation today, and Richard, you did too, with your expertise, and thank you. By the way, Richard's book that he co-authored with me, for the ones who are looking at it now, is Train the Trainer, and there's his name, okay? And Train the Trainer also has, and Ragnar, you know this, has a workbook that goes along with it as well. And there is my associate, and proud to be my friend too, Richard Heller, and of course, Ragnar with her 26 countries and chapters and ladies that she has around the world. What a powerful organization, what a stupendous organization, and the good you provide to humanity. Thank you.
Humbled and honored. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And you see, where there is a will, there is a way. So it doesn't matter what measures you need to take. That's the leadership. If you have promised, if you see that it is aligned with your vision, you will find whatever way. Even the hurricanes cannot take you out. So, and there are a lot of hurricanes on your way when you are up in your journey in your leadership journey, and you will
especially if you are a woman. Especially if you are a woman. Okay, with that, I want to thank all the audience for participating today. We had people from Africa, from Europe, from Asia, and many, many places and countries from around the world. So again, thank you all for participating. Thank you all for commenting, and your comments are definitely welcome. And they're warmly welcome, actually. Follow up with more comments, anything you want. If you can always get to the organizers and reach me, and through me, you folks can reach Ragne and Richard as well, so they can share with you their expertise.
At your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Christopher.